I'm so great to get the opportunity to talk to you. How are you today? How are things going?
Things are pretty hectic and exciting, and Passover starts in 3 seconds, it feels like. So I'm a little
Yes.
busy, but happy to be here.
I was just going to ask you if you're all prepared for Passover. I made my matzah crunch, so I'm ready.
I'm getting there. We're being hosted for Seder's, which like is a first for me. I'm always the one doing the cooking. So a little bit different this year, but I'm very, very excited to power down for 2 days.
Wonderful. Good for you. Good for you. I'm going to my sister's, so I'm very excited about that. Listen, all I have to say is, first of all, mazel tov on all of this, because really it is a movie that touched my heart so deeply. And the first thing I have to ask you, Mayim, is there anything you cannot do?
There's many things that I cannot do. My children and my ex-husband are lining up to tell you all the things that I can't do. I definitely am. I'm an overachiever. I like to be busy. I do love working, and as many of us who are artists and creators, like that's what we do is we create. So there's a lot, but yeah, there's plenty of things I'm horrible at, like finding my keys and phone. I lost my phone 4 times the other day, and that's a record.
Okay, we'll give you that for sure. But you clearly make it look very, very effortless. And when I started to watch this film, again, I could relate to it on so many levels. And of course, you started writing it when your dad passed away in 2015. It was just a writing exercise. And then it just blossomed into the film. See what I did there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what was it when you started to, get this going? How cathartic was it for you? And also, I was wondering how cathartic it was maybe for your mom once you showed it to her.
I mean, I think cathartic is a hard word, to describe sort of what that's like to do something so vulnerable. And, it's not autobiographical. And that's something I had to like keep explaining over and over, like to my mom and also to my family. Like there are things that happen, there are things that didn't, there are things that never would happen, in real life that happen in this film. So, there is a vulnerability for sure in kind of talking about these things, but in no way did I want to sort of like, air dirty laundry or force a cathartic process on anyone else. For me, there's a year after someone passes in traditional Judaism where there's a very specific year of mourning. And so I did that. And it was after that year that things kind of started like opening up and I started having like images and like things that I wanted to write down. Yeah. But for me, the cathartic process was all the work that I did, up until my father got ill. For me, it was the just the therapy, the working on myself, like all that stuff that allowed me to be present with him and to sit with him and to be with him, in those years and months. Yeah. So for me, like that was the catharsis. It was like feeling very clean, about being present that way, and also present for my mother, right. When someone is ill or even just aging, the spouse is differentially impacted, and that's something I wanted to explore.
Yeah. Dianna Agron, I think, is just amazing in this role.
She is.
Why did you go with her? What was it about her that you thought, yeah, she's the one?
So she actually tells this story as well. She came on my podcast to talk about it. She really felt compelled to do this movie. And she spoke openly about her father has multiple sclerosis, and it's an advancing, neurodegenerative condition. And he had a stroke several years ago. She felt a very personal desire to do this film. And, as an actor myself, I know that you don't have to experience something to be able to perform it. But I think, for her, she had really been looking for a project to sort of work some of this out. And she said this sort of was like, came to her. And she felt that there was like a real bashertness, a real like meant to be-ness about it. So, her performance is very beautiful. It's, it is a painful script, meaning there are things that are very painful that happen. But I also think she's really playful and fun. And, we have this kind of romance that, brings some humor and light into her life, which is important as well.
Yeah. I was just saying to you earlier how much this movie touched me. And I think every time I explain this scene to somebody who hasn't seen the film yet, I tear up. So just bear with me here, okay? I think what really got to me is what I love so much about you, Mayim, is that you always express, you have no qualms about talking about being Jewish and how much it means to you and how important it is to you. And, you know, something I've always tried to instill in my children, of course. And when the scene when she puts her boys to bed and every night they say the Shema, and even when she's not there, the two boys still do that. Why does that get me?
You know, it's you know, there's a lot in this. I mean, it gets me too, just hearing you talk about it that way. You know, there's a lot in this film about like responsibility, and often, especially in traditional families, it falls on the daughter. And historically speaking, you know, the role of caretaking falls on the daughter. And the sandwich generation of those of us who are taking care of our children and also taking care of our parents is significant. But there are some patterns that we cannot avoid repeating. And, you know, one of the things that was important to me as I decided to get pregnant and embark on having children was this notion that I need to be honest with them emotionally. And that doesn't mean burdening children with things that are not theirs to carry, but there are times when I am so exhausted, you know, feel beaten down by the world that I have fallen asleep while trying to put them to sleep. And the fact that, you know, I've instilled in them, or that we instill in our children, even if it's not a literal prayer, you know, a literal, I mean, it's a protective prayer, the Shema, but the notion that they also start holding for us. And in some ways it's a repetition of that pattern, but are there ways that we can make it healthier? You know, I'd like to think that for my children, their notion of parenting me is not as significant as mine was for my parents. But of course it's unavoidable. My older one was born a caregiver. Like I was like that too as a kid. And it's not necessarily because of the circumstances. A lot of it is that's his personality, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful. Really, really beautiful. How does one direct Dustin Hoffman and Candice Bergen?
Very gently. You know, I was unsure of that as well. You know, for all I knew, they would come in and say, yeah, we don't need help. We're good. Thanks. Dustin in particular wanted to know a lot. He wanted to know a lot about my family, the things that were true, the things that weren't. You know, he is a true master, you know, of this craft. You know, Candice, she had, I mean, she brings herself, you know, to every role that she does, but I loved how she brought this kind of like stoic kind of iciness to this character that was also very, to me, there was also a lot of love and a lot of humor in her. So that complexity is very hard to direct, because there are times when I want something, but I feel like we aligned very well. And I think she would agree, and Dustin as well. I mean, it was intimidating directing Simon Helberg. I worked with him on Big Bang. He was my friend and I looked up to him, and here I was, you know, then having to sort of, you know, direct him. But the actors also, I gave them a lot of freedom to make things right when it didn't feel right, because they have to bring themselves to it. It wasn't like I said to them, this is how it happened, please do this, you know?
Yeah. Just a couple more minutes I have, but I gotta, of course, mention Jeopardy, because we love watching you every night. And as Canadians, like that, you and Ken are splitting the duties and taking over for our wonderful Canadian, you know, Alex Trebek. What is that like for you, Mayim? Like, oh my goodness, like, wow, I was so excited when you took this on. You're so good at doing this, honestly.
Thank you. It's very enjoyable. You know, it's something as a performer and as someone who's trained as a scientist, it's a combination of a lot of approaching things in ways that I love and that bring me a lot of joy as I hopefully help, you know, highlight these incredible contestants. And yes, you know, no one can take Alex's place, and it's very special. It's a very special honor to even stand at that podium. You know, our writers and researchers, some of whom are Canadian, realized very quickly Mayim is not Canadian. She does not speak French. And so they have to absolutely spell things out phonetically, very specifically for me. But I'm wearing a Toronto Raptors jersey as we speak.
Oh, nice. I didn't see that. Okay, awesome.
My Canada love runs deep. I also have a podcast, Mayim Bialik's Breakdown, with Jonathan Cohen, who's from Toronto, and you know, beloved Canadian, who we do tease a lot for the way he says about. But he also, he has a story editor credit on my film. He's my writing partner. He didn't write this movie with me, but he did some of the comedy passes, and some of the jokes that people like most are his. So a lot of love for Canadians in general, but especially obviously with the Jeopardy connection, it's very, very special.
And lastly, I do have to mention Call Me Kat. I am so enjoying that. And what I think I enjoy the most is how much fun you and this cast are having together. I sit through the whole 30 minutes so I can watch that dance scene at the end. Come on.
We do have a great time. And Julian Gant, who's on Call Me Kat, was also in the film playing the caregiver. It was very special to have a friend, you know, with me. We do have a great time. That's not acting. You know, while I know that there are shows where people do not like each other and make great comedy, we happen to really thrive together. We thrive as a unit, and it's incredibly enjoyable to go to work and be with these people. We have a great time.
Yeah, and I understand Blossom Dad is going to be Ted Wass. We're going to see him on the show. Yeah.
Ted Wass. We started our season 2 with a little Blossom shout out with Joey Lawrence and Jenna Von Hoy and Michael Stoyanov, and then we are ending season 2 with Ted Wass playing Kat's father, who passed away.
Oh wow, so exciting! Well, listen,
very sweet scene.
Congratulations to you on everything. I've always been such a big fan of yours, and you're just a delight. And honestly, what a talent you are, Mayim. Honestly, this movie is just beautiful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Happy Passover.
Thank you.
Well. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.